Alright, just about to pull the old Crossflow out. I thought I'd give her one last start. She's starting from cold, so hopefully it starts. It should. It did the other day. So yeah, trying to, hopefully she goes. It should be right. They always start. Oh, look at that. Look at that. That old girl. Hey? What a good car. She needs a good run. That's all it needs. But no need for that. There you go, old girl. Enjoy your last run, old girl. Have fun living in the next umpteen years. I think it's a bit jumpy, that's because she hasn't had a run for years, so. Righto, goodbye, girl. And that's it. That's a Crossflow, that's the last run. 38 years of service. 190,000 Ks on the clock. And there she goes, she's done. Righto, time to rip her out now. It'll be fun. Disconnect everything and drain everything and take the bonnet off and goodness. Big job. But hopefully a few hours, maybe a bit less. And away we go. So I'm going to defumigate the shed and I'm going to turn the air conditioning on because it's hot as hell out there today. So, yeah, that's it. Goodbye, old girl. Thanks for your service. Time to get this big girl in there now. Yes, yes. Time to get a big girl. Big, thumping, angry V8 351 Cleveland in there. Yes. Look at that. That's going to go in there. Alright, so awesome. Yeah, now the job starts. The heavy stuff. So, anyway, next job. Let's do it. Anyway, so that's what underbody bash plates look like on an old XE. I think it's the country pack and the police cars. Anyway, for your information, that's what they look like. They go all the way back, and then the trans, and then the diff one I've already taken out. But yeah, there you go. That's what they look like, sump and transmission. That's leaking fuel, by the way. There's a tiny little bit of fuel left up in the carby that's coming down. Anyway, nearly there, little bit by bit. Just going to disconnect the transmission mounts and the transmission oil lines, and then I can connect up the and also the shifter linkage tool to get that disconnected. And then that can I can go and set up the engine lifter and get this thing lifted out. Anyway, there you go. Bit of something different for you. Alright, she's all disconnected and just about to come out. So, well, it was about 3 hours to do all the mucking around, but I did label everything and all that, so it sort of does take a lot longer when you're labeling and making sure everything, you know where everything is. So I'll quickly go through where things are and what needs to be disconnected, and just while I've got a bit more room to show you. So you got the transmission plug, disconnect that. Earth cable from the transmission through to the body, disconnect. You've got a couple of vacuum lines that go to certain places. See, it's labelled on everything. Then you've got the oil pressure cable, which oil pressure down there. And then you've got the coolant temperature, which is there, it's at the front of the engine. the little cable goes through there. You've got your kick down cable linkage that needs to be disconnected. You've got your choke, not automatic choke, I think. Yeah, could be wrong. Automatic choke, little power cable for that. Could be wrong on that, but anyway, whatever, who cares. Heater cables, heater core cables need to be disconnected. Obviously the fuel line down there, disconnected. Same with the, I believe it's a return line, disconnected that. So you've got a couple of vacuum lines that go from here up into the air cleaner. You've got air cleaner vacuum lines that need to be disconnected. So there's the kick down cable there. You've got your accelerator cable that has to be disconnected. And you've got another little thing there on the side of the carby. I'm not real sure what that's actually for, but whatever. I'm sure there's a purpose. Power steering. Bottom one comes out. This one I think's been modified at some stage of its life, and it's actually a hydraulic fitting, so I couldn't actually get that off. And I had to cut off the other end. See there? So that's still a little bit of that's left on the power steering. Power steering, as in the actual mechanism. So moving on. So that's about. Then of course the engine mount bolts need to come out as well, of course. So you got radiator hoses need to come out. They disconnect. Then you've got your automatic. If it's an automatic, the two automatic transmission cooler lines. They need to be disconnected. Radiator's easy. Two bolts here. 2 bolts there, mounts come off, and the radiator just pulls straight out. Radiator, that is, radiator pulls straight out. So, yep, okay. Moving around. This side, a bit easier. You got the alternator disconnect. That's pretty self-explanatory. They only go one way. Then you got the starter motor down there. Again, that just seems to go only one way. Can't really stuff it up. You've got your your air cleaner. I think there's some sort of breather hose. There's a accelerator cable there. This has already had the brake booster out, so it shouldn't be in the way anyway. So yeah, and of course engine mount down there and the exhaust. My bolts were stuffed, so I had to cut the exhaust. But that's okay, and there's also a small mount for the exhaust just there, so there's another mount for the exhaust. So yep, okay, then you can't really see it from up here, but there's a shifter linkage. If you've got a column shifter, you've got a column shift linkage down there you need to disconnect, but you do that from underneath. It's just one bolt, and the shifter linkage just comes off. So I think that's about it for engine disconnects. Oh, of course, the battery and the earth battery as well. So the earth from battery to engine, that needs to be disconnected. Yeah. Oh, look, I did it all in 3 hours, and I was interrupted halfway through that as well, but that's all right. So it's probably a 2.5 hour job on your own. Of course, if you've got a mate, speed it up a bit. So I just used the manifold on one side and the exhaust on the other side. Just use a standard engine crane with an adjuster on it. So that's it for up here. So underneath, get a light to help. She's a bit messy, a little bit of a battle with some stuff, but that's all right. So yeah, so if you've got a spare yoke, chuck the yoke in the back of the transmission. I didn't, so I'm just going to let that sit while I do this video and get rid of that transmission oil that's going to overflow out of the transmission. So underneath you got the 2 transmission hoses that you need to disconnect, just because you have to get them out of the way. As I said, you got the shifter linkages on the other side. That's for the column shifter. So then what you do is undo the 2 transmission mount bolts, which are those 2. Undo those 2 bolts, and then just only undo a couple of turns just to make sure they turn on the transmission mount. So just a couple of turns, just go dit with that rattle gun, but do not take that transmission mount off. Leave it in place until you're ready to pull everything apart, ready to disconnect. So that's really, and just make sure all the cables are out of the way. So make sure the cables are all out of the way and everything like that. So as you disconnect things, yeah, do it. Just make sure they don't damage any cables. So then from there you just get a jack, standard jack, run-of-the-mill jack, and then jack up the back of the transmission a tiny bit. And then you make sure the jack's supporting the transmission, and then you undo the other left and right side of the transmission mount, and it'll fall down nicely onto the jack. So, which is pretty easy. And then you've got the jack underneath the car to support it. So then you, with your engine crane, make sure you jack up the engine crane and get the mounts, all the engine mounts, bolts fully removed. And yeah, take the weight of everything on the engine crane. So that's it really. There's not much down here. It's just dirty, that's all. Just a dirty bloody job, but you know, it is what it is. So I didn't empty the transmission. Some people probably would to save that, but like I said, if you can find a score, a cheap old bodgy yoke, it'll save that mess pouring out the back. My spares at the shop. So anyway, I've just used my little hoist thing. That just gives me a bit of space underneath. It's been good. It's a good bit of kit. Just to give me a bit of space underneath to work. So yeah, that's about it. That's all I've got. I left the engine oil in it. Didn't need to drain that. So really, that's it. I'll just go through one more time just so people can see with a bit more light. I never thought about that. So that's where everything is. That's what she looks like removed. Yeah, so there she is. Everything off, everything's out of the way, ready to get her out of there. So that's the setup I used. I mean, whether that's right or not, I don't know, don't care. I'm doing it, it's my job. So, yeah, she's all good. No worries, well, I'm going to rip this old girl out. So it can be done on your own, no worries. I never have any problems. It's just time, that's all. Righto, there you have it. She's out. Gone. Sitting on the engine hoist. Up in the air, which I'll pull down very, very soon. You can't leave it up there like that. Look at that. A little bit of oil, but that's alright. I'll clean that up. There we go. Empty. So yeah, that's my day done. I've had enough. So anyway, I'll do the suspension, pull those bits out, clean up the two, that one, and get that painted, and run the new power steering lines and bits and pieces. That'll be tomorrow and the next day. So anyway, I'm finished. I'm going to go and have a shower and have a swim. So I'm pretty filthy. So yeah. So that's her, old Crossy. That's her. She's all out. Done and dusted. A few little leaks of bits and pieces, but that's alright overall. Pretty good. Pretty good. Anyway, I'm done for the day. Cheerio. See you tomorrow.